Hey Next Generation, welcome back to this channel, and today's video is going to be talking about the fact that love requires sacrifice. Basically, this is super funny. How I came up with the topic for this video is that I didn't really have anything planned, and I had the cameras and everything set up, and I was like, what do I talk about? I have all the cameras, I just didn't know what to talk about. So I was like, who do you turn to when you don't know what to do? Your mum, right? So I go upstairs and I'm like, Mom, what do I talk about? I don't know what I should say in this video. And she's like, what about talking about the fact that love requires sacrifice? And then my dad was like, oh, what about this quote from Saint Gianna? And then my boyfriend Craig also gave a couple examples, and so all four of us were in the room, and then kind of like not really keen on the whole like love requires sacrifice topic, and like, okay, why is it that I don't want to do this topic? Because like, if it's something I don't want to do, I want to know why. And so I was thinking about it for a second. I was just kind of silent, and I realized the reason is because I don't know much about it. So instead of giving my advice today, I'm gonna share what my mum's advice was, because I was like, well, what do you mean? I asked her, I was like, what do you mean by love requires sacrifice? I understand for marriage, like, you're married, there's nothing you can do about it, it's for life, so you're gonna have to make sacrifices. But what about in dating? There's people, or there's like girls, it can be both girls and boys, but you know, I've heard lots of stories about girls who, you know, feel like they're sacrificing something for whatever the man wants to do. I'm like, well, that's not really sacrifice, is it? Or is it? Because I'm not really about that. So I asked Mum, and she's like, she was thinking about it, and in the meantime, Craig was like, well, I think there's a difference between sacrifice and compromise. And I was like, oh. And then Mum was like, yeah, and I think it's also about the fact that sacrifice has to be something that draws both you and whoever that other person is closer to God. And when I was thinking about that, I was like, wow, that's quite interesting, to be honest. I hadn't really made that distinction before. Hey guys, it's Editing Amy here. I just wanted to add in a couple small things. And one of them is that compromise in that first story was like a bad example of compromise. It's how a person feels like they have to lower their standards or change their boundaries, or some of those like big things, then yeah, that's like a no-go. But then you can have good examples of compromise that might be like small things that aren't a big deal. For example, if you're out for dinner and you're trying to pick between fish and chips and pizza, it's not a big deal. You can compromise on that, but there are some things you shouldn't compromise on. And then for sacrifice, and another good example for dating is if a couple is tempted being alone together, then maybe they would some person would sacrifice that desire, that good desire to hang out with the person, to spend quality time, and they instead would spend more time in group outings or hanging out with family. So they're both good, but the sacrifice is because you know that's like greater, and so someone might make that kind of sacrifice for the person that they love because they're trying to choose love in that moment and do something that's better. So I hopefully that makes a bit more sense. And then Craig's gonna tell us another story about sacrifice. And he used this example of a couple in our parish, and apparently he was talking about how they'd both come home from work really tired, and the husband would still make the wife a cup of tea even though he was super tired and just wanted to take a nap. So that's an example of like sacrifice. So that was kind of interesting for me. Take from this what you will. But I looked up where the official kind of quote is that comes from the idea that love requires sacrifice. And one of the ones I found, beautiful one from St. Pope John Paul II, and this is how it goes. Dear young people, do not be afraid when love requires sacrifice. And that's from St. Pope John Paul II. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. you learnt something from it, that you can take this understanding or this new light on what sacrifice is, what compromise is, what it means to will the good for the person that you're dating, or in general in your entire life. You can take this into your family, into your friendships. It's certainly something I want to start working on, and something I also want to research and pray a bit more on. But I thought I'd share it with you anyway this week because that was a fun story, and also to encourage you guys to talk to your parents and talk to the people that you love about these important topics, because that's where I get most of my learning from. I'm so blessed, and so hope you enjoyed again. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you would like to. It would really support me in continuing doing this. And comment down below if this was something new to you, any thoughts you may have. I'd love to hear from you. God bless.